Hello everyone, my name is Mr. Big T Anderson and this is Tossing Them Back by Orangeflavor. This is the second, or first, depending on how I set the stories up. I haven't figured that out yet. Normally I just kind of record all the stories and then I kind of go and play some willy-nilly to what sounds good in my head. So, yeah. This is Orangeflavor, one of the two stories I am reading from them, so if you enjoy it, links down below to their story page as well as their author page. You can leave a good review. You can check out what they've written, and if you like what I've done, you can talk about it here. Or you can just say I suck, because, hey, I'm Schmucky Duck. In any case, let us begin. By the way, just before we begin, because I always miss at least one detail, this is Mass Effect still. So, or again, I just did the other one, so for me, still for you, this is only one fic per. Anyway, moving on. Onward, Tossing Him Back. Life's just too short to be serious all the time. Our lives, you mean? Cheers to that. He throws a smirk her way, and the two clink bottles, while several beers deep, Joker and Shepard talk Reapers versus the galaxy's finest fauna. The stages of drunkenness and forgiveness. Okay, so now the burning question of mankind has been answered. What burning question? Shepard interrupts, beer bottle paused just before her lips. Joker rolls his eyes her way. Manners, Shepard. Don't interrupt someone when they're mid-sentence. Oh, sorry. Wait, but what question? Her cheeks flushing pink from more than the alcohol as she gazes across the Citadel's Silver Sun Strip. From her newly acquired apartment's balcony, she knows her eyes in sudden annoyance. Joker sighs, settling further in his chair beside her, feet propped up on the railing of her balcony. Thresher Maw versus Reaper. Who would win? Ah, yes. Joker chuckles and takes a drink from his own beer. Several bottles litter the floor between them as they await the arrival of the rest of the Normandy crew for their shore leave party at Anderson's former apartment. And wasn't that one epic? Kairos for the win. Pointing her finger in the air, she laughs. Okay, but seriously, Shepard, I'm philosophizing here. Shepard does her best interpretation of a sober, concerned friend, furrowing her brows and turning toward him, mentioning with her beer, go on. So what are your thoughts on this one? Thorian versus Reaper, eh? He spreads a hand through the air in some sort of visionary motion. Shepard snorts her incredulity. What the fuck, Joker? I'm being serious. You don't even know the meaning of the word. Oh, of course I do. She raises her brows in a challenge, beer tipping back. He glares at her a moment and then shrugs, laughing, taking a long drink himself. Okay, sure. Whatever, you got me there. Life's just too short to be serious all the time. Our lives, you mean? Cheers to that. He throws a smirk her way and the two clink bottles. Shuttle cars whiz by in a haze of light and motion. The Citadel's night cycle is only just beginning to dim the strip just past the balcony. But really, Commander. Come on. Thorian versus Reaper. You gotta have some thoughts on this one. She shrugs. Don't know. I mean, they both got that annoying, freaky mind control thing going on. Don't forget they're both older than shit. That too. Fuck if I know, Joker. I'm just glad we'll never find out. Oh, come on. You can't tell me that in a universe as diverse and fucking ironic as this, there's only ever been one of those things. Shepard releases some sort of noise that's a cross between a snort and a scoff. She wipes her nose after it. There better be. I mean, come on. Killer Flora? Seriously? One was too much if you ask me. That shit is just way past science fiction at this point. Well, he begins, taking another drink. I've got to admit, the Thorian cloning thing he tries to articulate, it creeps me the fuck out. Shepard shivers at the memory. And those tendrils. But Joker starts imperatively, a finger held up in the air. The whole bastardizing of the species things the Reapers do is pretty on par, I guess. Shepard shakes her head, groaning. God damn cannibals. Freaky little fuckers. Have you seen their mouths? She turns to him with her question, eyes wide and only slightly unfocused. I leave the mouthing to you, Commander. You know that. She giggles at his answer, taking another sip of beer. She holds her bottle up to the light and see how much is left, and takes another long swig. Shepard takes a moment to think, musing over the experience of Zhu's hope. So long ago, so far and distant, barely a glimmer of recollection. We could have lost a lot more. What? Zhu's hope. Pharaohs? The whole pollen-infected creeper shit? She waves her bottle at him as though it's obvious. Ah, well, he says before downing a beer. That's Commander Shepard for you, savior of the common folk. Oh, fuck you, Joker. No, really, those colonists don't know how good they had it, even when they were shooting at your ass. He tries to hide his laugh behind his beer bottle. God, that was not fun. Joker laughed again, short and loud. Oh man, you missed the best part though. The colonists banging on the Normandy's hull all zombie-like. That shit was utterly hilarious. If not the tiniest bit Night of the Living Dead. Shepard raised a brow his way at the reference. Old Earth film, you wouldn't understand. She huffs, draining her beer and setting the empty bottle on the ground between them. I'll have you know I have a great appreciation of the Earth classics. She teeters over the edge of her chair a moment before righting herself. That includes sobriety, Commander? Hush. I deserve a little non-sobriety. Drunkenness, you mean? There's a scale, Joker. She informs him. Oh, do tell. Well, there's happy to start. That's an emotion, not a state of intoxication, Shepard. Oh, it's a state, she argues, finger raised and her brows furrow in confusion. Where's my beer? You finished it. Oh. She pushed from her seat, a little too swiftly, wobbling for a moment before she braces herself against the railing. Joker moves as though to steady her, but the sudden dropping of his feet from the rail and the swift motion of sitting upright tells him that he's pretty far down the scale as well, so he simply stops, watching her and bringing his vision back to focus. Shepard's laughed, her laugh blaring and uninhibited. Way here. Joker can hear her banging around the kitchen, and then there's a dragging sound, and he looks behind him to see Shepard trailing what looks like the bathroom garbage bin after several minutes. Sans garbage bag instead filled with ice and beer bottles out onto the balcony. He stands up laughing. Shepard, what the fuck are you doing? I couldn't find a cooler. But he doesn't question her more, choosing instead to help her drag the jury-rigged cooler across the floor to settle between the two chairs. There, tragedy averted. What tragedy? He asked before taking a bottle. Shepard pulled her own beer from the ice and settled back against the chair, popping the top off her bottle and letting it fall to the floor, unimportant. I don't know anything more tragic than a warm beer. Not even a war? Intending to say it with levity, it came out more serious than he intended. Too heavy, Joker. When he looked at her, beer stilled before his mouth. She looks out over the balcony, eyes averted from his gaze, and takes a long drink from her beer. Not tonight. She says softly and nods, mostly to herself, mostly in some small necessary reassurance that makes everything bearable. Joker wonders sometimes how she does it. She flies all the way for another time, for another place. How she circumvents her emotions with a simple not now and a stoic face. Thinking back, he remembered how she didn't even cry when they left Ashley on Vermeer, or when she sent that asteroid careening into a Batarian colony, or when Morden said his goodbyes on Tuchanka. But he remembers very clearly the way she braced her hands along the railing of the CIC, the way she pulled a long, tight breath through her lungs, the way she clenched her teeth and kept her gaze locked on the galaxy map, the way she had excused herself, voice tight and body stiff, and how he didn't see her for an hour afterwards. He understands now that Shepard does not share her grief. She never has, and she never will, because that's what makes her the savior they need. The soldier they wish for, the soul they don't deserve. Shepard locks away her heartache and keeps a dry face turned toward the world, and she becomes what they need her to be. He wonders what she looks like when she cries. He thinks he might never know. Joker clears his throat and takes a long, slow drink from his beer, smacking his lips as he lowers the bottle. So, you were saying? I was saying? He smiles, and it feels so easy and so natural. Your scale of drunkenness. Ah! Shepard perks up at the thought. Okay, yeah. So, happy, right? That's the first. Okay. And the second is wordiness. Wordiness? His brows furrow. Yeah, I like talking too much. Too friendly. Just no filter whatsoever. Like, I would tell you at this point that I love you, and I do, but it'd be all free and careless, and you couldn't really take anything I said at this point too seriously. So you don't love me. She scoffs, rather unladylike, and takes a sloppy drink from her beer. Of course I love you, you little shit. That is not what this is about. Just back the fuck up before you harm your self-importance, okay? You can't help the blinding smile that graces his face just then. Okay. Okay, so, Shepard leaned back in her chair, gaze flicking to the slowly darkening sky before taking another drink, smile pulling at her lips. Alright, phase 3, that means emotional contemplation. Not to be confused with deep, life-altering epiphany, which is stage 4, there's a subtle difference. The difference being a life-changing, I'm assuming. Precisely. Alright, so I'm going to assume by the nature of the conversations that we're somewhere between these two stages. Shepard narrows her eyes in thought, her finger still raised in the air, and then very slowly she exhales. Yes. You can't help but laugh at the obvious thought she puts into her answer. Should I be writing these down? I feel like I should be writing these down. Lowering her finger, a smile flitted across her face. You probably should. There'll be a test. What the fuck, Shepard? A kinetic test, of course. Hands-on. I don't believe in purely observational theory, you see. Rolling his eyes, he raised his beer to that and took a swig. Already on my way, Shepard. Good. She beams at him, sitting back in her chair, taking a sip from her own beer. Okay, so... Stage 5. Ah, yes, stage 5, also known as stand up, fall down. Joker almost spews his beer through his nose. And then there's tingly gums and depth perception disappointment for stage 6. Oh, I remember that one. Stage 7 is spiteful tummy. I love that you give human qualities to such things. And then there's, she stops, resting a hand on the arm of her chair and inclining her head towards him. When he looks at her blankly in question, she raises her brows his way, inching one finger up from her lap in a pitiful attempt at imitating the male anatomy. Joker scoffs, his laugh bubbling up from him to be soon replaced by an amused sigh. He smirks. I'll have you know, this pilot, has never failed to launch, if you get my meaning. You don't ew me. How can you ew me? You're the one playing You're the one playing erectile dysfunction charade, Shepard. Emotions to the hand in her lap and watches as her smile slowly breaks free on her face. You're so gross. You're grosser. Nuh-uh, you're probably right. I always am. Not when it comes to the xenophobic terrorist organizations that tote around Greek mythological monikers as a sell point, okay? Let's try to remember the big picture here. She punches his arm playfully, but the alcohol puts her off the mark a bit, and it comes off more like a scrape of her fist along his bicep. Pulls his arm back and glares at her. Ow, Commander! Invalid here, remember? You big baby. Still not a punching bag. She rolls her eyes and takes a long swig of her beer. You're no fun. Excuse me? I would rather like to think I am the fun. In fact, I am so much fun, I might single-handedly exceed this world's fun quota. Thank you very much. Too much funness, they call me. Excessive fun goodness. She stares at him, bottle paws before her lips. Wow, I forgot how full of shit you are. Says the person who thought seriously enough about her alcoholism to create the 7 stages of drunkenness. 8. What? There are 8 stages. So the last one is? She sighs angrily, sitting back in the chair and looking forlornly at her beer. Eternal regret. Usually accompanied by bouts of unconsciousness, she tacks on, waving her bottle with the words before taking a long drink. Of course, how could I forget? It's okay, I forgive you. She looks at him, at his smiling face, and then suddenly her own smile falters, her eyes dim. He watches her whole demeanor shift into something stiff and somber. I do, you know. Everything is suddenly still and taut between them, and he doesn't understand why. The air changes. They change, and in ways he isn't quite ready to articulate, but feels, nonetheless, because everything is suddenly dimmer, suddenly heavier, and he doesn't know where the air has gone, and he doesn't remember how to breathe. He furrows his brows in question a while longer, not connecting the dots, but then her heavy stare becomes too pointed, her weighted words too searing, and suddenly he's back on the Normandy. A bright plume of fire above the bubble of his sealed-off cockpit, debris careening past the nose of the frigate, his fingers tapping furiously along the console because he knows, if he could only make it out of the planet's orbit, if he could only realign the thruster ports, if he could only reroute auxiliary power, if he could only, he might be able to save this ship, might be able to save them all, might be able to save her, but the Normandy is dying around him, and Shepard's hand clamped tightly around his arm, dragging him up, tells him that they are lost. There is no only, and the sharp hiss of pain that seethes from between his teeth and her unrepentant march through the cockpit tells him how desperate, how scared, and how unwavering she is. The bright orb of Elektra, visible through the blown-out ceiling of the CIC, is blue and cool and glistening, and flames flicker at the edge of his vision. Between here and there, bits of the Normandy float aimlessly through space. His ship, his home, shattered and ruined. It is a gray and desolate graveyard, and perhaps even his own. He remembers glancing to Shepard beside him and catching the glimpse of her profile through her helmet, the grit of her teeth, the clench of her jaw, the tight line of her brow. Her eyes are ever forward. He has no words when she deposits him into the escape pod. No words with a sudden blast sends her sailing into the wall, the door to his pod sliding closed and locking. He has no words when through the small window of his cramped compartment he sees her gripping to the corner of the wall, flailing in the loss of gravity. He thinks he might have imagined it, but she looks at him then, through the jostling of the ship. The bits of metal winding around them, the flames dancing before them, and then she nods. And her palm slams into the control console, and slowly he's edging away. The distance growing farther and farther, and he can see her jettisoned through the ship's demolished hull, thrashing in silent space, a lost gray speck in glinting black and brilliant orange. He can't even remember the words he last spoke to her, and fuck to be forgiven for that. For a foolish, arrogant belief that he could save them, that he was more than his bones and made of stuff far tougher. To think that the heaviest toll would be his life. He was wrong. was a price far greater than he would ever know. Hey. There's only ever been one hero between them, and it was never him. I forgive you, you know, for whatever it is you think needs forgiving, but you need to know I've never blamed you. Not once. I've never... Hey, how about... Not tonight. You know, tapping his beer along the arm of his chair. He doesn't think he's ready for this conversation. Not yet, and not this prematurely drunk, and not this full of war-bred anxiety and last-minute desperation. It sounds too much like a final goodbye for his taste, and he rather likes to think they'll grow old on Tuchanka or something, raising hell with Rex's pups and getting overly sunburnt. This is the after he imagines. He doesn't imagine any kind of words about forgiveness until they can close their eyes to the sun and breathe deep that hard-won freedom. So until then, he's willing to carry the load. She blinks at him, eyeing him cautiously, and Joker scoffs good-naturedly at her concern, shrugging one shoulder in a quick jerk of nonchalance. You said it yourself earlier. Too heavy. Shepard purses her lips and plants her chin in her palm, elbow propped against the arm of her chair. Her beard dangles between the fingers of her other hand. I just think about it sometimes, you know, and well... Yeah, me too. Find me when it's over. He inclines his head toward her and smiles. It isn't so difficult. When it's all over, come find me. Tell me then. And maybe I'll be ready to hear it. She watches him a long time, finger tapping along her chin, and then slowly, painstakingly, her own understanding pulls the edges of her lips up, and she is smiling at him. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. She nods vigorously. I think we've hit stage 4. You mean you've hit stage 4? He snorts, downing the last of his beer. I'm sitting comfortably at stage 2. Thank you very much. Can't take anything I say at this point too seriously, remember? I think your estimation of your tolerance may be way off there, Flight Lieutenant. He raises his eyebrows back at her. Likewise. Shepard stretches languidly, bare toes wiggling. No, see? I've come to the very lengthy and well-considered conclusion that such a thing is most definitely not in my current priorities. Well, that's a roundabout way of saying fuck it. I'm trying to be couth, you know. A little less sailor mouthy and a little more articulation, okay? Joker narrows his eyes her way as he leans down between their chairs and grabs another bottle. Shepard, I don't think you can be couth, really. Well, you can be uncouth, can't you? True. So how can you be unsomething and not be the original of the something? She purses her lips in consternation, brows furrowing, and then she notices the beer in her hand and drains it instantly. I think you have just unlocked the next burning question to mankind. Contemplation, it's my game. She beams at him through her empty bottle, trading it up for another cold one. I thought your game was wanton destruction. That too. I'm a multitasker. Is that what you call it? Shepard throws a playful glare his way, and then the buzzer rings. She perks up instantly, glancing back over her chair to the front door. They're here! She cries excitedly, smile blinding. She practically vaults over her chair to get through the patio doors, somehow managing not to spill her beer, and then she skids to a halt before she's through the balcony's threshold, turning back to her pilot. Hey, Joker. Joker turns in his chair toward her, chortling, eyeing her in amusement. What? A toast. Okay. Tossing him back with your best friend, and to the next time I get to visit the stages of drunkenness with you, here on this balcony to after the war. Her smile's infectious, and Joker finds his own grin tugging on his lips as he clinks the bottle against hers. To after the war. It's a date. I'll bring the beers. I'll bring the laughs. Excuse me, I'll be bringing those as well. She pouts them, but there's an amusement in her eyes. Then what do I get to bring? He stares at her for a long moment, beer slowly lowering, and then he's laughing at himself, shaking his head. He reaches up and flips off his cap, plopping it onto her head as he answers her. Just bring yourself, kid. Just come home to us. And then he knocks the bill of the cap down over her eyes, and he chuckles. And she chuckles in response, teetering slightly with the motion. The slight just makes him ache in ways not unlike pain. The cap fits her somehow perfectly. God, you are the cheapest date ever, she says, laughing, and then suddenly sober, she fingers the brim of his well-worn cap, still filled with his warmth, and says steadily, easily, I love it. She dips her head and tips the cap in a friendly salute, and then, without waiting for a reply, she bounds off toward the door. The responding whoosh is followed by her squeal of, Steve, come here, you handsome fucker. And Joker thinks maybe he's never been this happy. Not once. He rakes a hand through his unfamiliarly loose hair and smiles, rolling his eyes. He's never getting that cap back. He knows that now, and he couldn't care less. So, sorry, I had the dog actually pull on my headphone cord. That's going to be a bit of a pain to see if I can knock out. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. Here's the thing. People say about the stages of drunkenness. I've actually listened to myself while I'm drinking. I actually speak better. After about a bottle of whiskey, I can turn into a political speaker, which is really sad. Some people like, okay, there's different, most people who are like military, there's like a few different kinds of drunks. There's like the rare kung fu drunk. Me and two friends it's like, I can play the piano. I've never done it sober. I don't know why. I can't even read music. But I've done like a couple of small pieces, and people are like, I don't know you played. I didn't know either. We're all, I haven't even been drunk enough to ever have a hangover. So, yeah, and if I ever get this, like, whole thing off the ground, I assure you, whiskey is, like, maybe I can show that off one day, just like, and this is what happens when we start drinking, and then you'll, like, see a nuclear reactor in the background. It's like, I made this out of paper clips. So, in any case, if you enjoyed the work of Orangeflavor, please go check the links down below, check the addresses. Read some of their other work. Tell them you liked it. And if you liked how I did it, just cool. That's great. In any case, thank you for listening. Have a good one. Ta-ta for now.